Hello, and welcome to She's Not Done Yet. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm Dr. Tamar Monosoff. I'm the founder of She's Not Done Yet, which is where we have real, raw talk about love, loss, grief, sex, money. And today, even more, we're going to be talking about sobriety and really finding a path forward in your life as we navigate different life transitions, gray divorce being one of those transitions. And I'm so excited to introduce you to our special guest, Lisa Hamill. And hey, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm really happy that you're here. I know that we've had actually a couple conversations, and just realized like this is a really important conversation to have. I think for women in particular, which is both of our focuses, women over 50 who are going through some major life transition and may feel disconnected in some way. So I'm going to introduce you in just a second. I just want to welcome our guests. Thank you so much for being here. And please put into the chat any questions that you have for us for during this live interview. And it's more of a conversation because Lisa and I are coming at things from a bit of a different angle, but we both have lived through Lisa, I want to say many lives, it feels like. But I know that many of you are also navigating major life transitions yourself. And that's what these conversations are about. When I went through gray divorce myself after 38 years, I was so stuck in steeped in grief for 5 years that it was really difficult to navigate my way forward. And that's why I wanted to bring experts like Lisa here to talk about really different topics in terms of sobriety and looking at it from a different angle. But also, it's at the same time, whether it's grief, sobriety, and other things that you're dealing with. I think it's like we go through many of the same feelings of disconnection and also trying to almost desperately find a path forward. So that's why I'm so happy that you're here with us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very
So
much for having me.
yeah, it's my pleasure. And Hilda, nice to see you. Kathleen, thank you so much for joining. And also, if you're joining us in the replay later, please do know that you can send us a chat or post your questions to us along the way during our conversation here. But also after the replay, and Lisa and I will make sure to connect with you. So let me just tell you a little bit about Lisa, and then we'll dive straight in. So, Lisa Hamill is an addiction, recovery, and personal growth coach, working with women over 50 who are going through major transitions in their lives. She's the founder of the SOS Collective, which is an international online women's recovery group. And she has her own Substack right here. I Remember Me. And Lisa, I know you are writing about these topics right here on Substack. And so people who are interested in connecting with Lisa certainly can and reach out to her directly. So let's start with your personal story. I think it's always important that we, let people know it's not like we're just, telling people this is the way it is. But in fact, we've lived through so much. And so that's part of what our journey is now helping others through theirs. So please if you wouldn't mind, just share something personal about your own journey.
Sure. Well, when it comes to divorce, I have been divorced twice. And definitely one after the age of 50. But, I think alcohol played a huge part in all of my relationships, not just in divorce. And I drank for 46 years. I drank from the time I was 13 until the time I was 59. And I've been sober ever since 2020. So it has a huge impact on my life. And the one thing that I've noticed, or the one thing that I've learned about myself over all this time, is that, um, you know, when we go through these major changes in our lives, we're going through major identity shifts. And I spent most of my life trying to hide behind a person, a bottle, a job, being a parent. I was trying to hide behind all these different identities. And it wasn't until I got really serious with myself about, one day I was sitting on the couch, doing my usual, right? Just drinking. And, I had the thought, it was really nice after my second divorce, like, I'm in my house by myself, I can do what I want. And I had
Mhm.
this thought that, well, no one's gonna see me. And I just really thought, well, you see you. Do you not matter? And is this
Wow.
really how you want to spend the rest of your life? And so it wasn't how I wanted to spend the rest of my life. And I had spent 46 years trying to get myself out of addiction, in and out, back and forth, trying to, uh, trying to, logic my way out of it, learn my way out of it, and I went to I went to all kinds of podcasts and books and workshops, and it finally dawned on me that, information is great, but information, again, where you're unwilling to integrate it into your life and understand what it means to you. And the truth is that it is a huge identity shift when you've spent your whole life sort of hiding behind, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, this is my career path, this is who I am. And you don't really sit with yourself and say, who are you? And who do you want to be? So I work a lot with women in story. What's your story? And the fact of the matter is that we have all survived 100% of everything that has come our way. But
Mhm.
instead of looking back at it and saying, what did I learn from that? How did I grow from that? Where has that led me? We oftentimes look back like I did. I would say, well, if you had my story, you'd drink too, right? We don't go back and analyze it. We just use it as an excuse. So I really try and work with people on, let's look back at it with curiosity. What did you learn? How did you grow? Because you're here now. And what does that mean to you? So that's been my path, really, understanding that, yes, I matter and I'm important. And that has had huge impacts on the other relationships in my life, particularly with my children, um, all for the positive. 2 years into sobriety, my daughter looked at me and said, it's really good to know that no matter how old I get, I can always change who I am and who I want to be, which
Oh, I
was
love that.
huge for me to hear, not what I was trying for. I didn't get sober for her. I didn't get sober for anybody else in my life. But the truth is that when you start to change your story, here's the paradox, right? When you start to change your story, people will relate differently to you because they're used to you showing up a certain way as a wife, as a mom, as an employee. And when you start showing up differently, some people will get on for that ride and some people won't. And so then we go through that whole angst of, am I still loved, appreciated, included? So it's a complex thing, but I really had to just start with me.
I really appreciate you sharing this. I told you this before, but I just love how not only are you being courageous by speaking out about your own story, but that you're really leading the torch for so many women who are also going through this. And I think one of the things that is really interesting is that dynamic of, if you're in a relationship where drinking is part of it, and then you decide that you want to go a different direction, that really does create a whole imbalance. And so how do you navigate when even with your kids, and like how do you navigate those types of changes once you decide what's best for you?
Well, it's challenging, obviously, because like I said, we've been showing up a certain way, right? And if it's your husband and he's been your drinking buddy and that's how you've related to each other, and the only time you really talk to each other is when you're drinking, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, right? You can have the truth come out, but sometimes you don't want the truth to come out. So you have these awkward conversations, but you're not dealing with the real person. He's not dealing with the real person, and you're not dealing with the real person. And yes, it's very challenging because all of a sudden you've decided that I can't live this way anymore. In some ways, I say I got lucky because I was living by myself and it was the pandemic. So I could stay at home and work on myself, and I didn't have to be out relating with people
Oh,
that in restaurants or that
hmm.
to help women navigate this all the time. I mean, ultimately it comes down to you can't get you can't change other people. You can only change yourself. So if you're changing yourself and other people don't like it, which they probably won't because you're showing up differently, it
Yeah.
takes a lot of work to get in there and to truly try and understand what's going on and what does this mean to me and how am I going to stay here. And yes, when it comes to relationships, it can be very challenging, especially if you guys have been drinking buddies. I see it go both ways. One is I can't do this anymore, and the typically the husband will is still a pretty heavy drinker, and that's just too hard to be around. If they are not a heavy drinker, I've seen them go, well, I don't understand why it's in my life anymore either, and so they'll get on board. And so I think whether or not you're drinking goes much deeper, as do most things in relationships, goes much deeper than to, the fact that you're drinking or not drinking. And those are discussions that you'll have and they'll be successful or they won't. But you got to start with you first. So,
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things you talk about is as you're navigating your own journey, which is bumping up against so many different things. Um, in terms of, like, what you were just saying, I was thinking especially if you go out with your work buddies and suddenly you're not drinking and then everybody's like, "What's wrong?" And then you got your relationships, your kids, your extended family, the whole dynamic. There's so many layers. And so, of course, it makes perfect sense that you would have to start with yourself and just navigate along as the new you unfolds, right?
yeah. Well, and let's take it even bigger than that, right? The biggest layer that we have to overcome is the societal layer, the normalization of alcohol.
Mhm.
It's the only drug I know of that when I say to somebody, "I'm not doing that anymore," somebody looks at me like I've lost my mind. Why would you do that? It is a drug. It is harmful to our system, harmful to our bodies, harmful to our relationships, but that's not what we're sold in the real world. We're sold that this is the way you celebrate, or this is what you see it in media all the time. And yes, I've done some work with a couple of professors at Notre Dame, and they teach a class called Drunk on Film, and they talk about how alcohol is portrayed in the media, in the movies, and they ask the kids to write papers after they've looked at all this about how it's portrayed and the fact that it is a drug. And a lot of these kids, these students, after they left, we did a survey with them, and their biggest fear was that I have a new knowledge of what alcohol really means to me, but when I'm going into my new job, the only place for me to socialize is to go to happy hours or every event that we go to. And so if my boss isn't going to buy me a drink, what does that mean to if my boss buys me a drink and I don't take it, what does that mean to me? Am I
Yeah.
cutting myself off? And so that's the larger societal thing, is that it's so normalized in our society that we really get dismissed for standing up for ourselves and saying, "No, I don't do that anymore." But it's down to the how are you talking to your husband at night in the bedroom? I mean, it's everything from the biggest to the smallest, and it is daunting. I will say it's daunting, but um, when you start understanding the impact that it's really having on your body, your mental emotional state, your physical state, your relationships, everything, it becomes a little clearer, a little easier to try and at least ask some different questions.
I think that I love that you, also showed the layers of complexity on the larger scale because that it is a lot, and so, how do you recommend then that people who may be experiencing this or wanting to take that next step, like, what do you suggest that what people do?
Well, there's a theory called the paradox of change, right? Paradox of change says you have to accept things as they are before you can change them. So the first thing is to acknowledge it. And in the first year of sobriety, I tell people all the time, there's only one rule. That's it. No drinking. And the truth is that it's easy to quit drinking. You just don't drink alcohol anymore. It's not easy to be sober because if you're going to stay there, if you're going to stand up for yourself, which many women, this is the first time, okay, this is something I really want to do and I'm going to do it despite what everybody else thinks. And we've spent, especially women over 50, we've spent all of our lives like, what does the husband need? What do the kids need? What does work need? What if I volunteer? Like we're giving ourselves away right and left. And when all of a sudden all these major transitions in life sort of happen at the same time. You go through menopause. The kids are leaving the house. You may leave your house that you've lived in for 30 years. You may or may not get a divorce. You may or may not get aged out of your career. And all of a sudden, everything that has been your identity, everything that has said, this is who I am and this is the face I'm putting forth into the world goes away. And that's when a lot of women who haven't really had a problem with alcohol all of a sudden find themselves drinking more, because it's just providing some sort of comfort to them, and it's escapism at its. I mean, it really is sort of escape, but then again, it's complicated. There's physiological. There's historic. We learn what we see. And most of our parents grew up drinking, and that's how they dealt with things, whether it was a celebration or some sort of tragedy. And so you really have to take a step back and say, okay, if I want to change, I have to accept things the way they are. I don't have to like them. I don't have to agree with them, but I have to at least acknowledge that this is my life as it is today. And if I want to start with change, I always say, baby steps, right? So the first baby step in the first year is you just don't drink. Everything else, you can do whatever. You can stay in bed all day. You can eat whatever you want. You can binge watch whatever. It doesn't matter. You just get to bed sober every single day. That gives your body and your mind the time that it needs to reset. And I would say, just like this community or any other community, the most important thing is community, because I found a group that I could talk to that I trusted, because I went into this, for the first year, I never turned my camera on. I never raised my hand. I never talked. I never did anything. I just listened. And what I heard basically was my story coming out of someone else's mouth. And it was
Nice.
the realization that I am not alone in this. All these crazy thoughts that I think I have, all these things that I'm struggling with, no, other women struggle with it too. And if they can find their way out of this hole, then I need to listen to them and see what worked for them, and get to know them and try and figure out what's gonna work for me. But you have to put yourself first, and that's challenging for a lot of women.
Yeah, it is, and I so agree with you about the sisterhood because that I too I tried to do everything with grief by myself.
Mhm.
And I truly believe it took me longer to recover because of that. Because you do need community, you need that kind of understanding. And like you said, you were really hearing that other women were going through it, which gives you confidence that this is something you can accomplish because they're doing it, right? One of the things I wanted to ask you that we talked about previously, and I thought it was so interesting about how we can appear even when we're appear on the outside like everything's fine.
Mhm.
But because you were talking about like with alcohol, how you can be highly functional at work and all the things and go to the social things and everything, but at the same time be completely disconnected on the inside. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all really good at that, right? Women especially. We're all very good at "I'm fine. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine." And, the problem with saying "I'm fine" is that eventually you don't even know who you are anymore, and you become so disconnected that you don't know what matters, what doesn't matter, and, you have to learn how to get back in touch with who you are and what you need and what you want. And this is where story, I think, really plays such a big role, because most of us, I mean, I would say my first addiction was not to alcohol, it was to my story, right? This is my story, whether it's this is how I'm supposed to show up in the world, or this is how, if you had my story, if you had my trauma, if you had my grief, if you had my thing, you'd drink too. Like it was an
Yeah.
excuse, right?
Hmm.
Or, it's this belief that our story isn't changeable. And in the past, it's not changeable, right? We can't change it, but we can understand it better. But then we have to sit with it and say, okay, well, this is my story and that's great. But now where do I go with it? What am I going to do with it? And most of us, I was the queen of that. I would just drink at it, right? And the thing is without community, you just feel like you are so incredibly broken.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that's broken. I'm the only one that's going through this. I'm the only one that's suffering this way. And that's the way it's always been. So I guess that's the way it'll always have to be. And that's not true at all. And you're not the only one. But until we start to put ourselves into community or meet other people or really, really be honest with ourselves, again, that paradox of change, right? Until I accept where I am and say, this is where I am. I don't have to like it or I don't have to agree with it, but I do have to acknowledge it. Now what? Now I can make choice. And so we have to become aware, aware of what we're thinking, aware of what we're doing, aware of what we're feeling. And once we bring awareness to that, then we can say, okay, now I have a choice. Do I want to continue doing the same thing I've always done? Or do I wanna try something else? And it's, the brain works in a way that you always default to comfortable, even if
Yeah.
comfortable is the most miserable place on earth, even if comfortable was me waking up with massive hangovers and being violently ill every morning, that's familiar to me. So it's hard to break out of what's familiar and move into something new, but you also have to give your body and your brain time to reset because 'cause you've been doing this for a very long time. And so physically and alcohol affects the prefrontal cortex most of all, and that's your logic, decision, reasoning, so it doesn't make sense at first. So that's why I come back to the one rule, just don't drink. And if you can just do that every day and one day at a time, that that adage holds true for everything from drinking to divorce to everything else. I can only deal with what's right in front of me right here and right now. We think we can look ahead. We think we know what's coming. We think we can make different decisions, but we're just outsmarting ourselves. It's like, what's right here, right now? What can I deal with right here, right now?
Right, that's such good advice, and, for those of us thank you all for being here, and joining us right now, and, please do put questions in the comments if you have any questions for Lisa, and what do you recommend? There's I'm sure that with the story and stepping back into the story and being comfortable, you can say, "Yes, I'm not gonna drink." That's like it almost sounds so I know it's not easy, but when we say it, it sounds like, "Oh, just don't drink." But the reality is there's so much involved in that decision. So, what do you recommend for, uh, people who've said, "Okay, I don't wanna drink, I'm not gonna drink," and then they they drink, but they're desperately trying to get out of that, like, that story, the pattern, the stepping into what's comfortable. What are your suggestions for that?
Well, it's like anything else in life, right? I didn't just stand up and start walking one day or talking or driving a car or become a parent or do my job or anything else. You have to keep practicing it. And you also have to remember that you might, it's not the end of the world if you make a mistake. Having said that, however, sometimes with alcohol, it can be the end of the world if you make a mistake because when you put yourself in an altered state of mind on a consistent basis, things happen. People fall. People have accidents. It impacts your health. Like, so this is bigger than just, like you said, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's simple to say, just don't drink anymore. You compare that to somebody who has an addiction to food. You can't not eat anymore, right?
Exactly.
So eventually, whether it's alcohol or food or a relationship or whatever, eventually you have to come down to, um, you're coming back to that story. Who am I telling myself that I am? And what can I do differently? So you every time you decide you don't wanna drink and then you drink, you look at that as a learning experience. What led up to that? How was I feeling at the time? Why did I decide? Why did I give in? You have to look at the rest of what was going on and take it as a learning experience and not sit in all the shame and the judgment and everything that naturally comes with that, because anytime we try and do something and then we fail, right? You're not failing, you're learning. I mean, that's we I a good friend of mine says this phrase all the time from Nelson Mandela, right? I never lose, I win or I learn.
Oh, I love that so much,
Yeah.
yes.
So pick a different, what am I learning from this? And yes, it's hard because it is a depressant. Alcohol is a depressant, and when you go back to drinking, it will have an impact on your brain and an impact on your body. So you have to have a lot of compassion for yourself. You have to have a lot of I'm doing the best I can at any given day on any given time, and I just have to get back. I have to just come back again, back again, back again. Like I said, it took me 46 years. I knew when I was 13, when I had my first drink, I knew it was a problem.
Wow.
Battled against this for 46 years, in and out,
Mhm.
trying to reason my way out of it, trying to rationalize it, to judge it, to justify it, and eventually you just get to the point. It's and, I think, I read a book my daughter gave me a book, called The Luckiest We Are the Luckiest, The Surprising Joys of Sobriety, I think is the subtitle, and there was a I you know, it was I saw it sitting on her counter because that's the other thing we have to remember. Our children are watching what we're doing, and my
Yes.
daughter was having her own struggles with alcohol, so she read this book, and I saw it sitting on her counter, and she said, "Oh, I think you'd really like it." So I bought it, and then I didn't read it for, like, another 6 months, and then I didn't get sober for, like, another 6 months after that. But there was a line in that book that stuck with me, and that is, "How many more times was I going to break my own heart?" Because
Oh, wow.
ultimately, that's what it comes down to.
Mhm.
And I've been playing around because I think addiction is broader. That's the other thing too. I really want to change the stigma of addiction because it was the word addiction. It was the word addict that kept me out of rooms, out of community, that kept me from reaching out for help and talking to somebody about it. And I think it's the same thing whether you're talking divorce or addiction. There's a shame behind it because there's a stigma behind it. And especially in long-term marriages, like everybody wants to place blame, everybody wants an answer, and that sometimes there are no answers. But I do think that if we're going to change the stigma of addiction, we need to change the definition of it. And I've been playing around with it, and the current candidate is this: addiction is anything we repeatedly turn to for comfort, escape, reward, or relief that ultimately harms us and leaves us feeling powerless to stop. The substance or behavior may differ, but the pattern is the same: temporary soothing followed by real consequences, shame, and the promise that next time will be different. And
Mhm.
the reason that I want to change it is because ultimately, so I gave up alcohol. Then I discovered there were other things that I went to for comfort that I also didn't feel good. Food, binge watching TV. Like I I started to understand that it's not the substance, it's not the behavior, it's the mindset. And the question I had for myself is, why am I the first person that I always want to take out? If I'm uncomfortable with
Mhm.
with a person, with a job, it doesn't matter what I'm uncomfortable with. If I'm uncomfortable in just trying to change, why do I always want to self-sabotage myself? Why am I my main target? And so I think there's this mindset that we have to get over, whether it's divorce or addiction or whatever. I am where I am. It has happened, but I survived it to this point. So now what? What did I learn? How did I grow? And what do I want to do with that? As opposed to just keep trying uh to push myself out. So
Yeah. That I think the definition is really spot on, and also what you said about, about breaking your own heart, by repeating the cycle is really powerful, and I know one of the things that we talked about was about the importance of the words that
yes.
you choose and how we talk to ourselves.
Yes.
So, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that is huge. I mean, the average human has anywhere from 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of those are the exact same thoughts that you had yesterday, and 80% of those are negative. So we are very good at taking ourselves down and
Yeah.
repeating it over and over and over and over again. And we have to start again, I come back to awareness. We have to start paying attention. There's the the phrase "I can't drink," right? I can't go on, I can't do this, I can't whatever it is. I can't is what? For now, until tomorrow, I can't like, there's this out that kinda comes with "I can't." It's not very definitive. When I say to myself, "I don't drink," I own that, I take ownership of that. I don't drink, I don't text someone anymore. I don't call them. I don't sell myself out. It doesn't matter what I don't is, but when you say I don't, the other one is I should or I shouldn't, right? I should do this. I shouldn't do this.
That is like I think we can all relate to the shoulds.
Yes, the shoulds. And my one of my favorite instructors on Peloton always says she's doing a should detox, and what we should replace that with is I will because. We need to start talking to ourselves with things that are more empowering. The other thing is I think versus I feel. I read this on Substack the other day and I really loved it, right? I think this, I think that. I think but how do I feel about it? And what's interesting is when I start a sentence with I feel, my brain a little bit shuts down because I have become so disconnected with how I actually feel about something. I might know about it. I might be really smart at it. I might have all kinds of ideas and opinions about it. But when I say, how do I feel? That's a different story. So when we
I
start doing this stuff and really asking ourselves these questions,
Mhm.
then it makes you pause a little bit. And when you pause a little bit, then you can say, well, what do I really feel? We're bringing awareness to it. And again, without awareness, you can't choose differently.
I think it's so interesting. I know that I read that, article too, is Karen Solomonson's, on the feeling and thinking, and I paused too, um, because I think also as women, and if you are managing your family and all the things that go along, the kids, the relationship, and the all the exterior things as well, uh, I don't know. For me, I always shut my feelings off, right? Because I was not prioritizing myself. And I think a lot of women fall into that. Like you're always putting other people first. So that is so interesting because I did the same thing you did, where I was like, well, how do I feel about that? And it really is like, I have no idea. But that's what you have to really sit with, right?
Well, and
Is sitting with
you're
that.
absolutely right. I mean, I talk in, to me personally, and in my meetings, I talk a lot about external versus internal. And we're always looking externally. Someone out there must have the answer and or someone out
Yes.
there needs something from me. So I'm always looking out there and we always want an answer. Well, most of life doesn't have an answer, but we're looking for it. And in the meantime, right, until we get an answer, we're just going to keep doing what we've always done because we're expecting someone to show up and give us a roadmap. Here, this is what you should be doing. Well, there's all kinds of gurus out there. There's all kinds of people that say, here, 10 steps to not drinking, 10 steps to a better divorce. I mean, there's all kinds of information out there. But if we can take in all that information, and it doesn't mean it's bad information, but if we're just listening to it and thinking that if I listen to it, I will have the answer, but we're not integrating anything into us. So information is just information until we integrate it into our lives. And we can't integrate it into our lives if we're always externally focused. If we're always looking outside of ourselves and I mean, we have been well trained to be externally focused. We're
Oh,
moms, we're
definitely.
parents, we're wives, we're always looking where how we can step in, how we can fix it, how and all we're doing is deflecting from how we feel. And so we don't think about how we feel anymore. We don't
Yeah.
notice it.
I
So,
I think that's really interesting. I did the same thing. Like when I was going through all the grief from divorce, I was devouring information,
yeah,
right? And some things actually, once I started to apply things, I'm like, okay. And but then you have to ask, like, is this? Am I feeling better from this? But sometimes it's like there's so much noise out there. There's so much that it's really sometimes the hardest part is just being quiet so
yeah,
that you can hear your own voice and really listen to it. I mean, I don't know about you, but, like, you shut down that voice, for so long, it's really hard to hear it, and it feels
yes,
very like, it takes some practice to say, "Okay, well, how am I feeling about this? What do I need to do for me?" And it's so, I think as you mentioned before, I mean, it's just we've been trained not to think about ourselves, especially, I think, over 50, like, our age group in particular, I think, has
yeah.
been really conditioned this way. Um, one one did you wanna say something?
No, I just think, again, it's internal versus external. It's also the head versus the heart. Again, we're in that thinking, right? My
Yeah,
I know this. I'm smart. I can figure this out.
yeah.
I can figure out I could give up drinking, right? I can outthink this. I can figure out a different way to do it, or, but the thing is that we're not listening, like you said, to our heart. And meditation of all kinds, anything that distracts you. People think that if I'm going to do meditation, I have to sit on a cushion. No, garden, cook, dance, do something
Walk.
that do something that you. But I do this for myself, and I talk about this in meetings. Put your hands over your heart and say, "I love you, and I'm listening."
Oh, let's do it together right now. If you're listening to this, and then so many people are on right now, that's so nice. Let's do it. Go ahead.
Just put your hands over your heart and close your eyes and take a big deep breath and just say, "I love you, and I'm listening." And then truly listen. Listen for what comes up. What do you need right now? What does your heart know that you've been ignoring for however long you've been ignoring it? Probably your whole life. So I love you
Love that.
listening.
Love you, and I'm listening. I love that so much. And even turning that into you can do that in 2 minutes, right? And take start your day with that and even journal what you're actually saying to yourself. I love that so much.
Journaling is also key. It's amazing to me what comes out when I journal.
Hmm.
I started with The Artist's Way, Julie Cameron, and the daily morning pages. The only reason that resonated with me is in her book, she said, "I don't care if you write, I don't know what to write for 3 pages. You get in the habit of writing every day. And always by the third page, something will come out that I'm just like, wow, that's weird. Where did that come from?"
I
But
know.
it's subconscious, right? And that's what we need to pay attention to because I feel like there's this little child inside of me, and it's been just sitting there waiting patiently for me to notice that it exists. And every now and then it'll raise its hand and say, "What about this? And what about that? And maybe you should think about this." And if I'm so busy externally focused on what everyone else needs or how I appear to everyone else, I appear fine, right? Then I'm not listening to that inner voice. And that's the real me. So this whole process really is about how are you getting to understand the real you? And ritual and routine is important to that too. So meditation, journaling, walking, things that you can commit to on a daily basis, but also start small. Do little things. Um, that really connect you to yourself. And then what's fascinating is you start doing these things and you don't even notice until you don't do it one day how it
That's exactly right.
you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I yeah, I've done all of those things too, and I think that's interesting also about the journaling because I often find that when you give yourself that gift of a few minutes in the morning,
Mhm.
it's always a surprise what you've written, at least for me, just like, wow, I had no idea I was even feeling that way at all, and
Right?
then it's just like your hand just takes off, but I also love what you said is being able to write like Julie Cameron did with saying, "I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, I don't know," and then allowing that just to happen and unfold as it does. That's
Yeah.
really good advice, yeah.
Well,
I
here's another quick thing in the morning that I just read. So this woman is a stylist, and I heard this podcast and I loved it, but she talks about before she gets dressed in the morning, she asks herself, "How do you want to feel?" So that's
Oh,
6. So that would impact how you get dressed in the morning, but I've incorporated that into at the first beginning of my journaling every morning. How do I want to feel today? Come up with 3 words, 3 emotions that you would like to feel today because whether you can accomplish it or not is sort of beside the point. The fact is that you're focusing on yourself first thing in the morning before you even get out of bed. How do I want to feel? I wanna feel colorful. I wanna feel wise. I wanna feel professional. I wanna feel grounded. I want you come up with 3 words, and it's amazing really what that simple little practice and then you can then journal maybe after that. What does that mean to you? What does it mean that I wanna feel wise? Because only you know what feeling wise to you means. But again, we become so disconnected to it, we don't even know why it's important. Why did that word come up? I Anybody that's in my meetings, my key word for everything is curiosity. Get curious about your life. Get curious about your story, get curious about how you talk to yourself, get curious about the habits that you have during the day, get curious about everything that you're doing because we have absolutely ignored all of it for so long, and the only way we're gonna learn how we are, who we are, what we want, is to look at all this stuff and then decide, "Does this still serve me, or do I need to change it? What do I need to let go of? What do I need to do more of?" We have to really start asking ourselves those questions. It's almost like you're raising a new child, and it's you, so
It is so true, and I just wanna acknowledge people who are making comments now. Irene says she's loving this conversation. Carolyn, so many great takeaways. EXO. And Carolyn also said, "Please tell me there's a replay." Yes, there is a replay right on the She's Not Done Yet homepage. It'll be right there waiting for you. I will also, if you've, subscribed to She's Not Done Yet, it's free. I will be sending after this live, I will be sending the replay out to everyone who has subscribed. So you will receive it definitely. So let's talk about default. I mean, we've touched on it a little bit, but I do think it's interesting in terms of your choice of words, like the default living via default or living by design.
Mhm. Well, I mean, by default, we live in default, right? We live in comfortable. And that was something that I said to myself early on that I got so frustrated with. It's like, I'm tired of living in comfortable.
Hmm.
The brain works is the second you step outside of comfortable, we step into fight or flight, right? If it's not comfortable to us, it's a threat. And so we have to kind of work past that. And the way you work past that, again, is taking baby steps, little tiny things that you're going to change.
Hmm.
When you say to yourself, I'm going to do this, and then you do it. I'm not going to drink today. And then you do it. Because the fact is that we have promised ourselves so many things over the years that we want to change, that we want to do, that we want to, I'm not going to drink anymore, or I'm going to get out of this, or I'm going to start doing that. But we don't stick to it because the second you get out of it, it's a little uncomfortable, and the second you get into uncomfortable, then it's like, "Oh, no, let's run back," even if it's terrible, right? This is just human nature. This is the way we are hardwired. Back to caveman days, right? If we didn't fit in, if we did not fit in, we were exiled from the tribe, and back in the day, that meant life or death. So we are hardwired to this. We better fit in, we better do what we say we're gonna do, except for ourselves, right? So we live in default. And until we acknowledge what our default mode is, we can't change it. So there's the design. Oh,
Hmm.
yes, we are living in default mode. What is that? What is my story? Why am I here? Who told me that story originally? Where did I hear
That
the
that's what I was. That I'm sorry. To cut you- I was wondering that myself. Like when what is that origin story
Yes.
to why it all began? The drinking began.
For me?
Yeah, no, I'm just
Uh,
thinking that everyone must have a story about how it's all started, right?
yes. And
Yeah.
for most of us, it's just insidious because our families did it. Right? It's a cultural thing. We saw it everywhere. So if you see it everywhere, I mean, when I was a little girl, um, my favorite dessert at like 8 years old, this is back before they had like I guess liquor laws. I don't know. It was a little restaurant in Colorado Springs called the Village Inn, and it was a red wine sundae. And it was a scoop of vanilla ice cream with a cup of red wine poured over it for an 8-year-old.
Oh my gosh.
About how many parents would give their kids like, um, whiskey and lemon and honey if they had partially probably just to knock them out, and partially because the lemon and the honey part's probably good for your throat, but the whiskey part is just go to bed. Um, so, we grew up with this, and it's everywhere, and it is heavily marketed to us, and it is especially heavily marketed to women and women over 50. We have become the new target market for the drinks industry. And that happened in the late 1990s when, hard liquor sales started dropping off. And if you notice around the turn of around the 2001, that's when all the pink drinks, the Mike's Hard Lemonade and all the women I mean, all the drinks that are marketed towards women. Women just surpassed men as more being more binge drinkers than men.
Wow.
Yeah. And women 50 and above are a huge market for this. Again, because young people now are sort of saying, I don't know if I want it anymore, right? We're changing it slowly, but they're going to hang on to those markets as long as they can. And the truth is that 80% of the revenue for the alcohol industry comes from the 20% of the people that are most addicted. So they have no incentive to try and get people to stop drinking. And so, it's an insidious thing, and let's go back to that story, right? Where did you hear that? Why do you believe that? Most of us are in that default mode. Why do I believe that about myself? Where did I hear that the first time? Who said that to me? What happened in my life? My mother was a good example. Somebody told her once, my mother, who was never larger than a size 4, somebody told her once that she was too heavy. She took laxatives for her entire life, every single day,
Wow.
and died at 54. I have no idea that I don't have any evidence that that caused her death. But when you are not getting any nutrients for that long, I think it has an impact, right?
Oh,
But it
definitely.
was an offhand comment that resonated with her somewhere. So again, curiosity, get curious. Where did you hear these things and why is that your default mode? And is it your default mode is the even bigger question, right? Or is it just something that you've learned how to do over time and now it's comfortable? And getting out of comfortable is it's challenging, but it's doable. People do it all the time, but you have to become aware of it. And then you can decide, is it still serving me or do I need to let it go? Where do I want to go from here?
This is really powerful, Lisa, and, I just wanna tap in, and Adele says she attends your meetings on SOS, and you're just incredible support, and she loves you. She loves it, and she loves that she's listening, that loves listening to this conversation, which is wonderful.
I love you and I'm listening.
That's great. So if women listening to this right now, if they're I mean, what you've shared has been so invaluable and about taking these small steps forward and stepping into community with other like-minded women and
Mhm.
understanding that it's hard. And also, I mean, like kind of recapping some of the things, but also, it is not punishing yourself if you have an off day and you step off it and you acknowledge that it's an off day and you're asking yourself these really hard questions, like, and listening to yourself about what's important to you. What is like kind of one last piece of advice that you would give to women who are really wanting is like they want so desperately to have a new path forward, and yet there's a lot of fear because, as you said multiple times, it's not easy to step out of the comfortable and the routine, even though it might be awful. um what is your best advice for someone who's listening right now, who's just like so wants her life to really shift in a way that's going to transform her?
Practice.
Perfect, yeah.
I mean, we live in this instant gratification society, right? If I decide today that I don't want to drink anymore, well, tomorrow I should be on a pink cloud and everything should be fine. We give ourselves no grace. We give ourselves no compassion. It took me 46 years of drinking to get to the point where I was so sick of hearing, why me? Why now? Why can't I? It took 46 years of trying and failing and trying and failing. And again, you don't fail, you win or you learn. So when you look at it through that lens, through that perspective of it's not a failure, give yourself some grace and some compassion. There is absolutely nothing that you have learned in your life that you have learned overnight. You didn't
It's
learn your
true.
job, you didn't learn how to be a parent, you didn't learn how to be a spouse, you didn't learn how to walk, how to talk, how to drive, anything. If you have a hobby or a craft, if you're a photographer, you didn't learn any of that overnight. You didn't learn Substack overnight. You haven't learned anything overnight. It is trial and error. And if
Mhm.
you feel like you've failed, it's not a failure. Go back and say, what can I do differently next time? Why if I fell off the wagon, as the saying goes, uh, why? what was happening. Because again, without that awareness, without that curiosity, you aren't asking the questions. You're just sitting around it. You're sitting in shame. And there's a big difference between, again, back to words, guilt and shame. Guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I am wrong. No one is
Wow.
wrong.
Wait, say that again, say that again.
Guilt
It's
is
so
I,
important.
right. Guilt is I did something wrong. I can maybe remedy that. Maybe I can, maybe I can't, but I did something wrong. Shame is I am wrong. I am bad. None of us are bad. We are human. And it's my personal opinion that being a human is the hardest job any of us is ever going to have. So we need to give ourselves some grace because it's
Yes.
hard and it's complex and it's confusing. And you can do everything right on one day and you think the world is great. That's the other thing too, right? Gratitude and grief live hand in hand every day. All these opposites live hand in hand every day. And the more we can set the expectation that just because I quit drinking tomorrow, or just because I decide that, now I'm moving on from my divorce, you can make that decision. Does it mean every day after that is going to be great? No, because it's life.
No.
Life is going to be up and down. And, one of the analogies that I love is the EKG, right? If you look at, there's this line and then there's heart rate will go up above and down below. And that's the heartbeat. It's up and down. And sometimes it's big and sometimes it's little, but none of us want flatline, right?
Right.
We know what flatline means.
Yeah.
So buy into the fact that it's going to go up and down. It's going to go up and down. And there's going to be good days and bad days. But we don't want a flatline. Flatline means I have opted out. I no longer care about myself. It doesn't matter what happens to me. And I know none of us feel that way. There might be moments in a day, moments in a lifetime that you feel like that's the truth, but that's never the truth. We always care about it and we always are here and we want to be here. So let's get curious about it and have some fun with it, and really look at your story and say, what does this mean to me, and what does it mean to me now? Because again, you have survived it to this point. You've figured out ways to get through all of the hard shit that came before. How did you do it? So
I love that. Lisa, thank you so much
thank
for
you.
your incredible insights and the really golden nuggets that you've shared with us today. I think everyone is expressing their gratitude, and I know that I'm feeling grateful that you took the time to really talk to us in such an authentic way. And for those of you who want to connect with Lisa, she's at I Remember Me, a Substack, and also the SOS Collective.
Yes.
And thank you all for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you on She's Not Done Yet for our next episode. Take good care, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.